Welcome to CSGuitars, the science of loud. Valves and pedals. Are they actually doing anything, or are they just there to bump up the price? This is a fairly contentious topic as everyone has their own baseless opinion on the matter. The fact is that yes, they can make for a very impressive sounding product, but only if the technology is implemented correctly. One of the few companies to get valve pedals right was Blackstar. Blackstar's initial HT valve distortion pedals were very highly regarded upon their release in the mid-2000s. Their sturdy build and internal voltage upscaling made them a force to be reckoned with in the pedal world. 15 years later, and Blackstar are back with their new Dept 10 pedals, taking the same high voltage valve concept and adding all the latest features and functionality for an incredibly versatile modern day drive pedal which can become the heart of your ampless rig. What's so special about these from a technology standpoint? Well, let's find out. The Dept 10 pedals are so much more than just a rebadge of the previous HT line. Certainly they still have a single ECC83 preamp valve which is running with a plate voltage of over 200 volts, and we have the 3-band EQ with the Blackstar ISF knob, the infinite shape feature which smoothly transitions the tone stack between British and American voicing. But beyond that, we have the perfect marriage of an analog valve state preamp, which can be utilised as a standard pedal or as a preamp in its own right, and a digital backend capable of simulating the cabinets, microphones, power amp and room ambience, all powered through Blackstar's Architect software, yielding direct injection capabilities for live sound desks or studio recording applications. You can even plug headphones into these and practice silently, disturbing no one. These units could legitimately replace your entire amplifier rig if you were so inclined. Let's get back to that valve though. How much is it actually doing in there? Well, quite a lot as it turns out. While an ECC83 preamp valve can run its plate voltage anywhere between 12 volts and 330 volts DC, inside a valve amplifier preamp will usually see them being delivered 210 volts, which just so happens to be the same voltage that the valves in these pedals are receiving. This is of critical importance because the plate voltage determines a lot about how a valve can amplify. High plate voltage as found in amplifiers and inside these Blackstar pedals is responsible for the headroom, fidelity and dynamic range that we expect when we think of valve response. Conversely, operating an ECC83 at 12 volts, as many other valve pedals attempt to do, will certainly still see the valve amplify and operate, but it'll do so with very few of the qualities that we come to expect from valves. We'll get a low fidelity, overdriven sound that's lacking in definition. Of course, the surrounding circuit and exactly how the valve is being utilised within it will determine a lot about the tonality and the drive structure of the preamp, meaning we can design different circuits to either have a cleaner, high headroom boost, or a heavier distortion if we push the valve's gain into its overdrive region, and then we can also assist with some further solid-state gain staging and clipping if required. The power of the valve is possibly best demonstrated in the simplest of these units, the boost. If you think back to my How Valve Amps Work video, you'll remember that I explained that a preamp section in a valve amp can be constructed from sections like this. A single ECC83 contains two triode valve sections which can be cascaded together, and the surrounding components select the bias and gain of these gain stages. If you were to lift this section of a valve preamp, place it in its own box with a passive 2-band EQ, then you would get this boost pedal. It's effectively another valve gain stage for your amplifier, which makes it most useful for getting more distortion from your vintage voiced guitar amp while retaining a Class A valve signal path. While the boost is really useful in the aforementioned application, it's the dual drive and dual distortion units which show the real innovation. These are essentially self-contained valve preamps with an advanced DSP power amp and cabinet simulation and all the connections to utilise this in whichever configuration you require. I'll be running my guitar directly into the input of the dual drive and then taking the output to the effects return of my amplifier, using this as my preamp into a physical power amp and cabinet, but that's only for me to monitor the sound in the room. At the same time, I'll be connecting an XLR cable to the line out and taking that to my audio interface. These are the sounds that you will hear in this video with all the inbuilt cab rig simulations applied. Meanwhile, I'll have an MXR carbon copy delay connected to the dual drive send and return, which places the delay after the preamp distortion, but before the digital cab rig simulations. This would also be a useful live setup for this device, sending the XLR instead to the sound desk, providing a controlled direct feed which doesn't rely on on-stage miking, while still monitoring through a physical cabinet on stage, which will relieve some of the pressure of what needs to be sent through the wedge monitors. Both the drive and distortion units offer impressive dynamic preamp sounds with the influence of the valve on full display, even if, in the black unit especially, there's so much distortion in here that there's sure to be some solid-state assistance at play, either with additional gain staging or some diode clipping. Not that this is an issue or contrary to the concept. Many popular all-valve high-gain amplifiers utilise some solid-state assistance from time to time. I felt that these were both fairly bass prominent, so you'll see that I'll have the bass control rolled off some of the way. Of the two units, the dual drive offers the most variance in sounds. Distortion is voiced more aggressively overall, with only a single crunch channel, which is capable of getting into some classic metal territory with liberal application of the gain control. The two distortion channels offer a very similar voicing, with the first being more precise and articulate for rhythmic playing, and the second more saturated for leads. Despite the internal plate voltages of over 200 volts, each of these pedals will power from a 9-volt DC center negative supply, although they do require a lot more current because of the valve in there. As 500 milliamps nominal isn't exactly something that most pedal power solutions supply, these all do come with their own dedicated switch mode power supply, although any that can supply 500 milliamps or more will work. Finally, I want to touch again on that Architect software. By connecting the pedal to your computer via USB and launching the software, you can get complete control over the customization of the Cab Rig Simulations. Selecting the cabinet type, the microphone capturing it, the ambience of the room, even down to what power valves are being simulated and how hard they're being driven. Once you are happy with these sounds, you can save them to any of the 3 switch positions on the device. This is all simulation-based, real-time recreations of all these elements interacting with each other, rather than going with an IR snapshot approach which, while effective, doesn't offer this level of customization. Also, you can use that USB connection to turn this into an audio interface, meaning you can record guitar with only this unit if you don't already have a dedicated interface to connect the XLR line out to. Well, that concludes my brief overview of these new valve pedals from Blackstar. If you fancy getting your hands on any of them, then links to them will be in the description and the pinned comment. And don't forget to click all the buttons you're supposed to make this video viable to the ever-changing whims of the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now. Keep it loud and stay safe.